Hey everybody, this is Dream, and today we have a 11-game Major League Baseball slate for you. Before I get started, can you guys smash that like and subscribe button? Hope everybody did well with football this weekend. Let's get into the slate. We do have some weather concerns for the slate. The Boston game, the Mets game, the Twins game, the White Sox games, and the Colorado game all have some weather concerns. I don't think any of the games won't play, but there is some capability of that, so we'll just have to wait and see when we get closer to the slate. So let's go and get into our pitchers here. We'll start with Glasnow for Tampa Bay. Now, he's got upside here as good as anybody on the slate. He's had just 2 games under 20 fantasy points since the start of July, and he faced a team with the highest strikeout rate in Major League Baseball. He's also capable of a lot of strikeouts as well himself. Um, he has some really good potential on the slate, so I think he's a great option on overall. Then we'll look at Brandon Roeder for Milwaukee. He is facing Miami today, and in his 8 starts that he's only had 120 fantasy points. He's also only given up 8 earned runs total in the other 7 games. He has nice potential here and a good upside on the slate. Valdez for Houston's a little bit streaky this season, but he is capable of a good game here versus Oakland. He's had ups and downs throughout the year. He did have a tough game against Oakland, but he's also had 2 really good games, so I do think he's a viable option here. He's in a great situation, so he's a great contrarian option off of Woodruff if you would like. Then we'll look at Gilbert for Seattle. Now he's facing the Angels, and the Angels do have some bats that can do some damage, but I do think he'll limit it to 3 earned runs or less. The question here is if he can get over 7 strikeouts or not, and if he can, then he'll definitely pay off on the slate, but he's high risk, high reward as a result. Then I have two value plays here for you, and Quintana for the Mets. Now he's facing Arizona that can be tough, but he does have the 15 to 25 fantasy point upside here. It's not a given, but he's capable due to him usually going over 6 innings and getting 5 strikeouts or more. If he can keep the earned runs below 3, he should be okay here and have a decent score. He's only had 2 games in the last 9 where he didn't have a quality start as well, so he's played 9 games this season and had 7 quality starts, which gives him a lot of potential for a decent game here. And then we'll look at Smith for the Yankees. Now he's facing Boston, who he's actually done well against this season a couple times, and he's had a bad game against. But he's a Hail Mary due to being very cheap. He's had 4 games over the last 19. Oh, sorry, 4 games over the last 6 where he had 19 fantasy points, and one of those was versus Boston too. His K rate has been decent, which gives him some upside, and he's definitely got some potential. He had 21 in his last game against Boston just a couple games ago, so he is a very capable Hail Mary option on the slate. Moving into our catchers here, we'll start with Gomez for the Cubs. Now they're playing in Colorado, so the Cubs are definitely going to be a hot team to use. He's been a little bit inconsistent throughout the season, but he does draw good metrics for this game in Colorado, and he does have some home run upside on the slate. And he's nice and cheap as well. He was very close to being a core play. The only issue really is that he's not a huge home run hitter, but he does have the advantage today. William Contreras from Milwaukee also in play. He's hit the ball fairly well recently with a 300 average almost. He's also averaging nearly 10 fantasy points a game. He's managing to score fantasy points without home runs, which is even better. So he's got multiple hit games in the last few. He's very capable of home run as well, though, so he's a viable option on the slate, though he is slightly overpriced. Moving this to first base here, we'll look at Cody Bellinger, who can play in the outfield as well. He's hitting the ball very well. Recently, he's hit the ball great throughout the season. He's got really nice home run upside. He's had 4 home runs the last 10 games, in fact. He's not striking out too much, and he does have some low-end stolen base potential as well. He's just been playing very good. He's got multi-hit potential. He doesn't need a home run to pay off either, though he is very expensive. That's the crazy part about him today. But he is in Colorado, so he's got nice home run potential. Vlad Jr. also in play. He's hit the ball better recently, though he isn't hitting the home runs like we'd like. He's only had 1 in the last 10, but he's still scoring fantasy points in a pretty good clip, which definitely gives him some upside here. Though he is a little risky, he definitely draws some good potential. Patrick Wisdom for the Cubs also in play. Now the Cubs are going to be a popular stack today. He's definitely a way to go cheap at this position with home run upside. He is kind of a better best play at the home run position though, because when he does draw the start, if he does, then he'll need to hit a home run probably to pay off because he's not getting a lot of hits otherwise. Then we'll look at Casas for Boston. Now, I do think Schmidt is an interesting pitcher today, but Casas has hit the ball very well recently with 3 home runs in the last 10, and he's hitting over 300 for that stretch. He's also got good metrics for a multi-hit game, so I do like his potential today. Maybe in second base, we'll look at Mookie Betts, who can also play in outfield. He's also hit the ball very well recently, though he did come back from injury. He's been kind of up and down, getting hurt a little bit, but he should be good to go. And if he is playing, then he'll have home run potential on the slate. Obviously, he's a big home run threat every time he's up to bat. Uh, Oopsie, Altuve is in play for Houston at this position. He's pretty expensive, and he hasn't been quite as good in the hitting as he was earlier in the season, but he's actually had 6 home runs in the last 10 games, and that gives him a lot of potential, though his outside the home run games have been a little bit weaker recently. But he still draws great metrics here, and he's a great potential to have a big game. Then we'll look at Brendan Rodgers. For Colorado. Now he's been very inconsistent throughout the season, but he does hit better at home than he does on the road. So while he's at home, he's usually a decent play as he averages 8 fantasy points a game when he does start. So we do need to make sure he starts today, but if he does, he'll be a great option on the slate. And then Torres for the Yankees is a good option as well. He's hit the ball pretty good recently. He's had 4 home runs the last 10. He also has some nice potential for a multi-hit game, and he doesn't need a home run to pay off at his price being slightly reduced. Maybe in the third base, we're going to have a pretty risky, expensive play with Devers because he's been somewhat inconsistent recently, but these last few games he's starting to hit the ball better again, and that's what we like to see. Anytime he heats up, he's usually a great option as he has nice home run potential as well, and he's even been doing it without the home runs, which is even more impressive for him. Chris Morel is a little bit pricey today, but he does draw home run metrics, and he's hit the ball pretty well throughout the season. He's also hitting the ball pretty well right now, so that gives him some nice upside, and he does have multi-hit potential in this particular situation. We'll also look at Madrill for the Cubs as well. Now he's going to be a cheap option if he does draw the start today. He'll be a boomer bust play for a home run, but he's for a multi-hit game, but not a home run. He's not a huge home run hitter. I apologize. But anyway, he's hitting the ball decently well when he gets opportunities, and he does manage to score some fantasy points. He doesn't need a big game to really pay off to help us pay up for some other options. Dansby Swanson for the Cubs, obviously in play for his home run potential today. He's only had 1 home run in the last 10 games, but he's had that last one in the most recent one. He also has good multi-hit game potential, and he's hitting the ball very well, which give him a lot of upside. And he's a little bit cheaper than some of the other Cubs. Tover for Colorado, also in play. Now, he's been somewhat extremely boomer bust throughout the season, but he does have multi-hit potential, and he's usually a lot better at home than on the road, especially averaging almost 7.5 fantasy points a game at home versus on the road where he doesn't. But he also has some nice home run potential in this particular situation as well. And then for a cheaper option, Willie Adames for Milwaukee. He's kind of high risk, high reward today, but he does draw some potential as he has some good home run potential. It's just he hasn't been hitting the ball particularly great anywhere else, but he is hitting the ball better at home than on the road, so I do like his potential here. Maybe the outfielders, we'll look at Aaron Judge first. Now, he has been very boomer bust lately. He has hit some home runs, but he is not hitting the ball particularly well, and he's striking out a lot. So that is a concern here, but he does draw some potential for a good game. So if you want to utilize him, he's obviously fairly expensive, but he's high risk, high reward. Tatis Jr. is a core play for me for San Diego, as he has great metrics for this game, and he's facing a pitcher that really has been terrible, so I like his home run potential today. He's also been pretty solid against the Dodgers in their 10 games. He's averaging 9 fantasy points a game, and he looks like a great option on the slate, though he is fairly expensive, but not as expensive as he has been throughout the season. Bellinger can also play here at this position. Alvarez is in play. Oh, sorry, got for the Houston Astros. He's hit the ball ridiculously well, almost 400 batting average over the last 10 games. He's had a lot of multi-hit games. He also draws home run metrics, which he does need to hit home run early to pay off here, but he can have big fantasy point games as a result. Juan Soto also in play for San Diego, though he has been really inconsistent recently. He does draw home run metrics, but he's high risk, high reward because he does need to hit a home run to pay off at this price. Suzuki for the Cubs is in play today as he draws good metrics here. He's hit the ball very well, 410 for the last 10 games. He doesn't have the biggest home run upside, but he is multi-hit game potential and home run potential some. He's also just hitting the ball very well, seeing it well, and he's a great option on the slate. Michael Brantley is a great option on the slate as he's only played a handful of games, but he's hitting the ball very well so far. He's a great hitter a lot of times, and he has good multi-hit and home run potential here. And this is a great situation for him, and I like his upside a lot. Yoshida also in play for Boston as he draws good metrics and a nice upside matchup here for Boston. I think he's got some ups and downs throughout the season, but he is a capable hitter and has good home run potential on the slate. Though Schmidt is a guy I do like a little bit. Stanton is completely been or bust. He is a home run or bust guy. He's had 4 home runs though in the last 10 games, so he's hitting the ball pretty well right now, and that gives him some upside. Though he is probably going to strike out the other times that he at bats. Ruiz for Oakland is a kind of a sneaky play today, as he's nice and cheap, but he draws nice stolen base potential, and that usually gives him a lot of upside for home run for potential here. He's not a huge home run threat, but he does draw fancy upside with his ability to get on base and get stolen bases. Then we're going to look at Jock Peterson for San Francisco, who's a nicely priced here. He's hitting the ball pretty well. He hasn't hit the home runs a lot lately, but he doesn't need to necessarily to pay off at this price, as he's got good multi-hit potential as well. And then Eloy Jimenez for Chicago White Sox. He's been somewhat been or bust throughout the season, but he does draw home run metrics on the slate, and so he's a viable candidate here as a kind of contrarian option. So with that said, guys, thank you for liking, commenting, subscribing. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below, and have a nice day, guys.